His Imperial Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie I I, stealing of money. Now, the stealing of the money we're going to make. This recording is from an Ethiopian official, matter of fact, a finance official.
Would you tell me about the last time you saw His Majesty, please?
The last time I saw His Majesty is when he was held by the Derg, and we were with a group of military officers of Ethiopia who wanted to interview him, and there were civilian Ras Emperor, his cousin.
Yes.
And a civilian investigator and the military people. And the discussion was, where is the money that His Majesty owns abroad? And His Majesty did not reply at that point. And his cousin also asked. He said they have all the arm, they have everything under their control. They want you to give them the money. That's when the emperor said, money. You said billion. Where would that come from? And why, if we had it, would keep it abroad? And as for the money that's held by my grandchildren, haven't they rights? Aren't they Ethiopian? That's when the main comments on the money stopped.
First and foremost, I have to exercise the fair use clause for the recording there. Because it's not I one, and I utilize for educational purposes. So, and a matter of fact, for all of the recordings and sound that is not of I sound, we exercise the fair use clause. Because once again, it's all about the educational purpose. Now, I choose that recording there because sometimes that is a elder Ethiopian financial official where was around and was administering at the time of the king governance. So this is why I use that recording there. Now, another when I hear one time I think it's a sister into in I comment where did I mention she pull I with a propaganda slander, yeah. Where she mentioned a patriotic brother named Bele Zeleki. And when I do some dig some information from him, I recognize say is a real patriot. When the king did left gone defend the case in England there. Him are one of the ones them were fiercely up on the battlefield a fight the Italians them. I wait for 5 years until the king returned. In the process, once the king end up after eliminate him. And ever since then, especially in Ethiopia, the ones them I love in the Gojam area, Zeleki too. Up to this present day, despise the king too. But that are Ethiopian politics. But nonetheless, when I research and look into the allegation, I have a manifest in this regards. Now, the killing of patriots. After the war, the king set out to rebuild within the rebuilding process. He had made governmental appointments. Patriot leader Bele Zeleke was displeased with the post appointed to him in Bekene. He felt insulted and betrayed. He felt he deserved more recognition because traitor like Ras Hailu was returned to rule in Gojam. Gojam was an hereditary kingdom ruled by Tekle Amenot, father of Ras Hailu. The people of this kingdom was loyal to their lord/king, not central authority. As leader, the king have to be strategic in stabilizing the country. Belezeleke has grown arrogant, especially his 5-year war against the Italians' occupation. He now have men who are loyal to him. Therefore, he thinks he can force his way into power. He chose to fight against central authority and lost and imprisoned. He escaped from prison and continued to wage war. He was captured and was publicly executed. Those who were loyal to Bele Zeleke turned him into a martyr, and this became a smear campaign against the king. With such influence of Bele Zeleke, what would have happened if the king had given him a more powerful position? Judging by his action, he probably would have eventually challenged the authority of the king. The king, being astute and perceptive, gave him Bekena. He did not waste no time in showing his arrogance and rebel against the king. The same way Menelik II tested young Rastafari humility when his father died and gave his father governorship of Arar to Safo Belcher. Rastafari accepted Sidama without fuss. Likewise, Bele Zeleke was tested and failed in showing arrogance instead of humility. A wise king tests all around him for potential treachery. Situations like these causes the king to be labeled a tyrant by the propagandists. Famine is a periodical occurrence in Ethiopia. Because of this plague, the Walla and Tigray region are always affected. Here are some famine that affected Ethiopia. 1974 to 1991, civil war between Ethiopia, Eritrea, and Tigray. This caused famine and up to 400,000 to 1 million people dying in 1991 to 1992. Famine caused by regional civil war. Eritrea's People Liberation Front and Tigray People's Liberation Front. 1991 to 2000 famine. 2011 famine. By only the 1973 famine during his Imperial Majesty's reign is politicized. Just goes to show that when the powers that be are against any government, anything can become a tool to overthrow. His Imperial Majesty was no exception. Once they saw the global impact of the king on the diaspora and continent, along with Rastafari community, the idea of the king becoming a black messiah had to be stopped. How? Character assassination, lies, slander, propaganda, like feeding lions while people are starving. Slavery, tyrannical despot, etc. Note the king was never considered to be these things when he was placed on the cover of Time magazine in November 3rd, 1930 and January 6, 1936. It was not until European nations recognized that the king is an adept diplomat, too strategic, shrewd, and nobody's puppet. Therefore, he was labeled hence 1974 coup. If the king was such a tyrant, why he did not kill these traitors, Legia Ayasu, Haile Selassie I Guksa, Ras Ailu, Ras Belcher Safo. And even again, we can mention Bele Zeleke before the king never kill him at first, the king lock him up, and then him turn around, escape, and continue waging war, which the king had to do what the king have to do. Because, so therefore, I can say the labels of the king being a tyrant and a despot. You know what I mean? The king is not that. Education danger. The king sent young elite to be educated in American and European countries to gain knowledge to build Ethiopia. Instead, they returned with foreign ideology and then tried to overthrow the king in 1960. While the king was in Brazil, they killed off loyal government officials in their attempt coup, which ended in failure and death. The king recognized the dangers of unsupervised education. The king became more vigilant with the student population, recognizing foreign intrigue is at play. Education is good, but foreign ideology to destabilize the government would not be tolerated. Foreign exposure and Western propaganda was used against the king, saying he is a tyrant, he is against change, he don't want to relinquish power. If these things were true, why would the king give constitutional rights to the people? Was not the king who built educational institutions? If the king did not want change, why would he strive for an educational society? People who are educated are able to think, analyze, and question things. So why do this if you are against change? Why would you send students to foreign lands knowing they would be exposed to new ideologies, just like how the king as a youth was exposed when he was visiting European nations? Does not make sense to I and I. I would not be surprised if some of those students were engaged in espionage activities against the king. Divide and rule is the game they play. Yeah, man. Another one is feeding lion. Yes, the king should not feed his lion. Better yet, he slaughtered them and utilized for food for people who are starving. While he is at it, he should slaughter his pet dog Lulu too. See, these are some of the things when I hear certain words on the king and I pre-observation how the king move. I can accept these things about the king. You know what I mean? And this is just I position in reflecting upon the king and observing the king movement in the earth. Yeah. England, that old treacherous dragon, collusion with Italy to colonize Ethiopia. England sold out Ethiopia to Italy. The same way they sold out the Palestinians to Zionist Israeli. The same way Italy rained mustard gas bomb on the Ethiopians while the world stood by. This is the same treatment the Palestinians are experiencing now, while the world is watching currently. Both these catastrophic events are orchestrated by England behind the scene while pretending to give aid. Why is after the king sidelined England after they tried to colonize Ethiopia economically under the guise of aid/helping? Which the king counters strengthening diplomatic relationship with America. See, the king knows America wants a foothold into the Red Sea region, which the king gave to America to neutralize England's influence in this area. Hence, the labels of the king being oppressive, authoritative, despot. Prior to this, he was the consummate statesman being lauded in every country. He went from statesman to fragile old despot, fearful of relinquishing power, becoming a tyrannical dictator, says the propagandist. And I fire burn them sound. Because the king did what he had to do in maintaining the sovereignty of Ethiopia, regardless to them and those, and whatever they want to say. I recognize the king for who the king is. Coronation, light of the world. When Rastafari went to European countries in his quest toward modernization, modern equipment was not all it noted. The plight of diaspora blacks and the misconception about Africa being a backward and primitive people. His coronation dispelled that myth. Also, European leadership saw the effects of His Imperial Majesty on the diaspora. The diaspora never saw white monarchs and dignitaries born to a black man, which began European attempt of destroying His Imperial Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie I and Ethiopia's sovereignty through warfare and propaganda. Second, Italy were revenge for the Battle of Adwa. Italian females were so serious about the war effort, they gave away their gold wedding bands, replacing them for steel ones. This is to show how deeply committed the Italian people were about the conquest of Ethiopia. Now, I and I have to have that deep commitment to the Chada Rastafari. Imagine the woman them give them wedding band for be smelted for what? Support the war effort. Why I and I as a people can support I and I own in that regard? Be deeply committed to Rastafari. At that I and I need like a Rastafari a year one and I and I continue to tell the ones and ones them this, you know. Rastafari is yours is the only thing the European world never gave us. Come out of I and I oppression. And I refuse to accept what them and those want to say. This is why I declare Rastafari. Yeah, man. League of Nations. The king was strategic in maneuvering Ethiopia into the League of Nations in 1923, endorsed by Italy, pretending to be a friend of Ethiopia, while in 1920 they, along with England, were having secret deals about their sphere of influence in East Africa against France. Can you imagine if the king was not strategic, what 1936 would have meant for Ethiopia and Africa at large? Ethiopia being the only African nation not colonized by the Berlin Conference 1884 to 1885. And this is why I and I call England the old dragon. Because in most catastrophic event, especially overthrowing our governments and all that thing, if you check behind the scene, you probably find England's imprint on most of them, if not all. Especially about them time there. Currently now America are the forefront on strategic intrigue for overthrow governments. Currently. Loving white people, this is another one of the sound them and utilizing America to neutralize England the same way his Imperial Master Emperor Haile Selassie utilized England against Italy. How England's duplicity against Ethiopia, Neville Chamberlain's secret plot with Mussolini, the very same strategy they used against the Palestinians when they sold them out to Zionists, infaming Israel with the Balfour Declaration of November 2nd, 1917. Again, I want you, anti-Rasta, to tell me of black nations qualified to help the king with his modernization of Ethiopia, along with modern artillery capabilities, industrialization. Which black nation was an arms manufacturer? So, hence again, when I not chat off on the mouth about the king, I love up white people, the king have to do what he have to do to protect his nation. And when the king move diplomatically, if no one overs diplomacy, then another king fall. And this is why I and I they are counteract. Not for phone a negative sound against the king. Because when does a chat off on the mouth and don't know the fullness. You see me I come from? Alright, modernization. Towards Menelik II, his Imperial Master Emperor Haile Selassie is the combination of both, but more strategic. Emperor Towards recognized the power of cannons and modern guns after the Egyptian unleashed their cannons on him and warriors, which was scary and caused him to experience defeat. This led him to cultivate arms deals, diplomatic relationship with England. This is just a further elaboration when I mentioned how Towards end up with the conflict with England. This was a precursor to that because the king recognized the power of the cannon and he want cannon to defend himself and bust cannon from people. So he want to make him own. And England are going like them a ramp with the king Towards and I want to give him. So the king do what he have to do. Nonetheless, divisive rule again. England used Johannes and Menelik II. England no use Menelik, but Menelik again, like I say, strategic. Stand on the sideline and watch you see how it play out. So him can assume power because such is the order of the day in Ethiopia in them time there. You see me I come from? So at this or that there. Kings of Kings title. This is another one when we hear ones and ones. I run off them more. So make we address it. Kings of Kings. Him is not special. There are many ones like Darius and Cyrus the Great were also kings of kings. Not to mention King Shi Huang of China was also kings of kings. he established the king dynasty. What separates the king from all is, though some were connected to the Solomonic dynasty, none is the fulfillment of biblical prophecy, meaning Haile Selassie I is the only king whose name means might of the Trinity, referencing Jesus Christ. He is the one who fit the scripture. Behold, I made mention of Rahab and Babylon to them that know me. Behold, Philistia and Tyre with Ethiopia, this man was born there. Psalms 87, verse 5. No other king can claim this but Haile Selassie I the first in real time. Also Isaiah 9, verse 6. For unto us a child is born and unto us a son is given. The government shall be rested upon his shoulder. Did not the king fulfill this prophecy from childhood until the overthrow of his government by careless Ethiopians? 2 Samuel 12 to 16, God promised to David. Likewise, Psalms 89, verse 4, Jeremiah 33, Revelation 1, 14 to 15, here like 2, 17, Revelation 3, 12, Revelation 22, verse where God new name. Now, Revelation 19:15, out of his mouth goeth a sharp sword, that with it smiteth the nation. He shall rule them with an iron fist. Yeah, man, the king definitely manifests that, especially when he got the League of Nations and castigate them for them betrayal. Yeah, man, he smite the nation, and it's sharp like a sword, man. The king fulfilled that. So I can see that. You know what I mean? And also, the king tightened up in a Ethiopia with an iron fist. The king did have to do that. Because remember again, you know, 80 different ethnic groups, the king have to rule firmly. And remember, out of the 80 different ethnic groups, most of them have them lords or them feudal lords. And when they put these different groups loyal to them leaders or king. So the king, like I said, the king fulfilled that for I and I again. Revelation 9, 19, verse 16, Vestal written kings of kings, lords of lords. The king manifests that too. Those are the titles given to him on coronation day. Genesis 49, Jacob promised to Judah. You know what I mean? None of these kings have a movement named after them, like Jesus Christ and Christianity. Likewise, his imperial majesty Emperor Haile Selassie I the first and the Rastafari movement. What about Revelation 19, 15 to 16? The king fulfilled this prophecy referencing Christ's second coming. Did any one of the kings of kings spoke to the League of Nations? What about the United Nations putting them to task in upholding human rights without hypocrisy? The biggest question is in relation to the name Haile Selassie I the first. When the mystical priest named him so in 1890, did they knew that the Jamaican elders would have declared him as Christ in his kingly character in 1930? Thus I counter the narrative again, you know, and I continue counter. So the propagandists, them and the haters, them against Rastafari, we have to put them on a foot. We can't allow them to come on this space and talk anything they want to talk and can't support it. So I have to counter them with facts, dealing with the king. And I have to defend Rastafari and show the viability of Rastafari. You know what I mean? Yeah, man, countering foreign influence and student. So the king should sit by and watch foolish Ethiopian orchestrated by foreign influence or ideology. The young elites he sent to European nations to study to help with the modernization came back with foreign ideology to destroy his government. The king did what was necessary to protect Ethiopia. What did those who overthrew the monarchy did? War, bloodshed, devastation. Did I go on in the time of the Derek too? Speaking of famine, guess the king is responsible for every famine after 1974. Marcus Garvey. This are when them ones and ones mention them love use Marcus Garvey against the king too. But watch this now. Marcus Garvey burial site was the first place the king visited when he came to Jamaica on April 21st, 1960. Was at Hero Circle, where him placed wreath at the grave of Marcus Garvey. This gesture was to indicate respect for Marcus Garvey, to the world despite Marcus Garvey's erroneous pronouncement against him, His Imperial Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie I. So once again, I just assure say the king never make the word sound of Marcus Garvey, erroneous word sound, determined when him come to Jamaica, him pay homage and homage to the great honorable Marcus Garvey. And likewise, I as Rastafari, I forgive homage and respect to Marcus Garvey. Because yeah, there are ones and ones where with the divisiveness again, because it's always this divisive mindset, where the Garveyites versus Rastafari. We have to do away with them things there. Are one Rastafari, and we are one people, and we have to get into the one accord of I and I as a people, and this is what Rastafari is about. Yeah, man. So I just some of the words on again, some of them things I and I mentioned already, about nothing wrong with revisiting. And since I and I march out in the 2025 year in relation to the survival of Rastafari, I and I have to give the sound them for the youths them can look into. Because I and I don't want I and I don't believe thing. I and I Rastafari is a practical reality, and I and I have to know. And we can't afford to let YouTube plans and naysayers and anti-Rasta sentiments dissuade I and I from Rastafari. And when them a chat off them out, I and I have to have words on to counteract them. And we have to counteract them with facts. Because we not make up no story. Everything the propaganda them use against the king. Information they are now, especially on the YouTube space, if you go through, you find information for sure saying about them space and time there. A PS slander and lie them not use against the king, and I have to show and ones and ones, especially young lions them. The reason why them do what them do. And up to right now in a present time, you have ones and ones still a black sound against Rastafari. To dissuade I and I from Rastafari. And I have to come to the defense of Rastafari. I have to show the youth them. And make me sound like me I repeat myself, but I just saw it going. I have to always. Sometimes you have to repeat things for it stick. For ones and ones get it, So I just make you know say. I and I with their same way, Yeah, man. I and I there same Rastafari righteousness, And that is I and I objective in this space and time here. So now until such time, know that Rastafari is yours. None never gave it to you. Rastafari is Caribbean African unity. Ja Rastafari without apology. Sealer.